What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a video for you guys. Don't mind the noise in the background. People want to watch football. While people are watching football, I'm watching boxing. Pretty much, I know what you people might be thinking. How could you live in Texas and not really like football? I don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point. Let's get into this Andy Lee versus Brian Vera 2 that took place on HBO last night. It was a 10-round middleweight fight between the two. It was a rematch from 2008, March of 2008, which was on The first fight was on ESPN Friday Night Fights. This one, Andy Lee fought a much smarter, slower paced fight than he did back in 2008. Being that he's 3 years older, he wasn't as overzealous as he was in the first fight. In the first fight, he was very overzealous. His first response when getting hit was to hit back. Even though I didn't really like the stoppage of the first fight, because he was still throwing, he was still responding. I think it's one of those things that did well for his career. It made him a different fighter. To an extent, in this fight he was more cautious and fought at a much slower pace than he did the first fight. So anyway, going into the fight, the first round was he threw a lot of single shots. Didn't throw too many combinations. He was trying to look as if he was looking for the uppercut and trying to slip it in from time to time. But overall, the first round, I thought that it was a Andy Lee round, of course, just because he was the one getting off first. Vera was he kind of crouched low and he was walking forward, kind of as if he was trying to walk him down. His punches were a lot crisper in the first few rounds. But, in the second round, Andy Lee knocked him down with a straight left hand at the end of the round, counter straight left hand. While, after Vera threw, he missed. Lee came in with the left hand, knocked him out at the very end of the round. That was a round where Lee was beginning to counter and find his rhythm in that round. So, round 2 I gave to Andy Lee, so forth and so on. From rounds 3 to about 8, Vera started to stand after the knockdown. Brian Vera began to stand up with Andy Lee, and Andy Lee started to capitalize on the fact that he's taller, and he has a smaller fighter that's trying to stand up and try to fight tall with him. And this is my own manifesto, a smaller fighter should try to fight small, if he had that ability. Crouch down and give the taller fighter a target. But it pretty much played in the Lee's advantage. The fact that Vera was standing up with him, and Lee was able to capitalize on it. He was able to land the jab, the right hook, and you could see in the earlier rounds, in the first 2 rounds as well, that he was doing a good job hooking off that jab. He wasn't landing the right hook solid, but he was trying to, he was pretty much hooking off the jab, looking for the uppercut, whether it was to the body or up top. He threw the left hook, counter straight left hand, almost automatically. Was landing. So in these rounds I gave to Andy Lee. So pretty much first 7, 8 rounds I had it a shutout. Even the 9th round had it a shutout. Pretty much Andy Lee, 2 more rounds of where Andy Lee was pretty much, the pace started to slow down a whole lot in these rounds. The pace began slowing down a little bit. He started to, he wasn't throwing as many counters. And Vera, I guess, trying to find his stride in later rounds of the fight. But pretty much Andy Lee had built up too much of a lead, and he knew he built a lead, and 10th round pretty much just gave it to Vera based on the work rate. He was coming forward, whatever, but Andy Lee was able to land a few left hands in that round. But pretty much Andy Lee avenged his only loss in his career. And pretty much, this is me. I think that if Sergio Martinez isn't going to fight Chavez Jr. next, if he's not going to fight P-Rog next, I think more than likely he will fight, or even Matthew Macklin. I think Matthew Macklin in a year or so will probably be a viable opponent. Could fight Martinez, because I think Martinez and Lula Bella were both impressed by his performance against Felix Stern back in June. I think that if Sergio Martinez doesn't face Matthew Macklin, I think the viable opponent will be Andy Lee. Andy Lee is taller. He's about 4 inches taller, about 6'2". He's tall. He can fight tall. He stands up straight. and pretty much, he's used to fighting. He's sparring with Vladimir Klitschko, who's actually taller than him. And I think that he probably has some interchangeability within his style. Andy Lee. I think he's ready for this fight against Sergio Martinez, if you ask me. I think that the style involved, I think that could probably give Martinez some trouble. Pretty much on paper, preliminarily. It really depends. They both are southpaws. They both, know how to use their legs in the ring. They both now know how to jab and use angles. So it would be an interesting fight to see. But you have that what's the difference between Lee and Williams is Andy Lee knows how to fight tall. He knows how to stay behind the jab, and he uses his legs, and he's more of a pure boxer than the Paul Williams who comes forward and comes in and throws volume shots. Andy Lee's a little more patient in there. He has good timing, and like I said, he's tall. Tall, has long arms, and knows how to use that to his advantage. And so hopefully, I would really like to see that fight come off. So anyway, peeps, I'm out of here. That was The Distance. Peace.